Good afternoon, everyone, from Dunrovin Ranch in Lolo, Montana. It's a late November afternoon. It started out being a very rainy and cold morning, but the sun has come out and we're actually enjoying a rather nice afternoon. I wanted to invite you into the hay and feed part of our ranch. We did put a web camera up in our hay barn in hopes of your being able to see it right up and close. But we've got a little glitch in our technology, and James is going to continue to work on that to see if he can switch from the ranch camera to the camera that's now inside of our hay barn. Hopefully he'll get that going, but if not, I think you can still see plenty from there. And I wanted to talk with you about how important hay is in terms of keeping our horses warm in winter. Horses have a very long and complicated digestive system, and they are meant to walk great distances every day, eating lots of low quality, high fiber forage. And wild horses, like those you sometimes see across the river in the Sapphire Mountains, do follow that food regime. They walk many miles during a day, probably up to 20 or 25, and they paw for their forage in the deep snow, and they have accustomed themselves to doing that. Domestic horses, however, have a slight disadvantage because they are kept outside of those kind of circumstances where they can continually walk all day and instead rely on us humans to try to feed them in a way in which that mimics. So that's what we do here at Dunrovin. I'm going to pull out a bale of hay so you can see how big a bale of hay is. Hay bales come in a variety of sizes, and the size really depends on the equipment that the person who produces the hay uses to stack it and to bale it. Our particular bales weigh about 84 pounds, and we divide these bales into what we call flakes, and it's sort of a natural way that the bale is formed by the equipment. So each equipment is a little bit different, and when you buy hay from a hay supplier, the thing you want to do is weigh the bales and then weigh each flake. I'm going to bring out a flake so you can see what that is. When you cut the strings on a bale of hay, it pops open and the flakes just automatically come apart, almost like sliced bread where each slice kind of comes apart. Let me get a flake here. Here we go. This is a single flake of hay. It weighs approximately 6 pounds. So in each one of these bales, we have about 14 flakes of hay. And the way in which you feed a horse is by its weight. Normally, you try to feed it somewhere between 1 and 1.5% of its body weight as kind of a maintenance level of food. But that won't do in the wintertime. In the wintertime, we have to up the amount of feed depending upon the wind chill and the temperatures. I think you have a chart there, don't you, James? Can you put that up so people can see what I'm talking about? Have you got that up, James?
Yeah, so we're looking at that chart now.
Okay, great. Well, this is this winter's chart, and as you can see, on the left-hand side, we have specific animals listed, and each animal requires a little bit of a different feeding schedule because of their weight, and also because of their own kind of body functions. The donkeys are what we call easy keepers. That is, they are very efficient at converting hay to fat. And this in part comes from the fact that they evolved in the desert where there was not enough forage, so they're very efficient using their forage. Therefore, they don't need very much forage. So as you can see, they only get when the temperature is above 20 degrees, they get 0.5 flake in the morning and in the afternoon. And then the next column is what they get if the temperature is between 0 and 20 degrees, and that's 1 flake each in the afternoon and the morning. And then if the temperature and wind chill go below 0 degrees, they get 1.5 flakes. So on this table, as the temperature goes from higher to lower, the left column being around 20 degrees Fahrenheit, the middle column being between 0 and 20, and the far column between under 0, each horse gets more food depending upon that wind chill and temperature combination. And the ponies are also what we call easy keepers, so they get a little bit less in terms of their overall body weight than do the herd of horses. And then some of our barnyard horses are kept here because they are a little underweight, and the horse that's standing behind me when we get back to that view is Jasper, and he is a little underweight, so we're giving him extra feed so he has his own row there. And as you will see, the herd over in our winter field, we feed by the bales. We put out, the number of bales we put out is a function of the temperature and wind chill. Okay, and then every Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, we throw out what we call packer pellets. James, can you put the camera back on me and I'll show people what a packer pellet looks like. And packer pellets they're called packer pellets because packers take these in the back country to make sure that their horses have enough feed. They're kind of compressed food. They have all the same nutrition plus minerals and a trace of molasses in them. That's one of the reasons the horses think of them as treats. They love the molasses. But these are compact and are easily taken into the back country in bags rather than by bales. And I can see I have a customer here who's watching me and making quite a bit of noise. This would be Captain Clark over there looking for a handout. And indeed, I will give them all a treat here now that they have rounded themselves up. So to feed our horses in the herd, we have stacked hay over on the winter field, and I think, James, you have some photos of our hay stacking adventure over on the winter field. We have a total of 28 tons of hay over there, and of course a ton is 2,000 pounds, so that means we have 56,000 pounds of hay stacked over on the winter field in preparation for the horses this winter. And what happens is the horses are digesting their food all day long. They create heat from the inside out, and that's exactly how we keep them warm during winter. So over on the winter field, the guys spread the hay only once a day, but they spread it all over. So the horses are forced to look for it and to walk. Again, what we're trying to do is mimic nature's conditions, which is to go long distances. I can see one of our ponies here is getting into our equipment. They're very anxious to be fed here, so I'm going to try to dissuade him. I've got a real crew here waiting for me to give them their treats. Maybe I'll do that now. That might dissuade them. And of course I'll have to feed treats to the horses behind me as well. Here you go. All right, this one is Lewis. This one's Clark. Here's Maud. And for a change, Gertie's the last. They love these packer pellets. And behind me, I have Chinook and I have Jasper. And I'll give each one of them a treat as well. They're pretty polite about it. These guys are pretty polite. They like their treats though, that's for sure. People may notice the special mask that I have on Chinook. That's because he has an eye issue and he cannot be exposed to sunlight. So these are special goggles for Chinook that protect his eyes from the sun. Okay. Horses have adapted to a whole wide range of different circumstances around the world. In fact, they're one of the most adaptable mammals that are known. They exist from very harsh desert climates all the way up into the Arctic and places like Iceland. And if you compared those horses, you'd see big differences. And what happens is, as horses get into a new habitat or migrate to new habitats, they slowly evolve over time. And there's a couple of things that animals in the north distinguish themselves from animals in the south in terms of the hemispheres, or from warm climates to cold climates. For example, there's what biologists call Bergmann's rule, and that says that animals that live in the north are generally larger than animals that live in the south or are in warm climates. Colder animals are larger than animals that live in warm climates. But they also have, generally speaking, shorter limbs, shorter feet. They're more compact. They kind of centralize all of their heating apparatus so that their limbs are not so exposed to the cold. They also evolve different kind of fur, very thick fur, and some of it is even, two different coats of fur. And the northern or Arctic animals also change physiologically in terms of their blood, and they actually produce a substance which is like an antifreeze, and it enables them to endure incredible cold weather. They also have a metabolic rate that decreases during the winter time. So, and horses, you can see this in different breeds of horses. The ones that have evolved in the north versus the ones that have evolved in the south or around the equator. Very different looking horses. And you can, it takes clearly years for animals to develop this, but I'm going to ask James to show you a short film about a horse called the Yakut horse, which is from the Yakut region of Siberia, Russia. And there the temperatures can range from 100 degrees above zero to 94 below zero, and their winters are 8 months long. These Yakut horses are really incredible. They've been there for over 800 years, and they have completely adapted to their environment. The owners of these horses just let them go all winter long. They fend for themselves, and they have a huge survival rate because they are so well adapted. They're short, they're stocky, they have incredible fur, and their metabolic rate slows way down in the wintertime, so they actually need less to eat. It's a really interesting thing, the way horses have been able to adapt to very wet climates, very cold climates, desert climates. They're very adaptable animals. So James, if you wouldn't mind putting on that fun video, I think it's only about 6 minutes long, but it's well done. It's there's no talking, so you don't need to know Russian, but it's a beautiful little video. And then I'll stay here, and after the video, James can tell me if you guys have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them. In the meantime, I'm going to hand out some more treats. Enjoy the video. Well, I hope you enjoyed that short video of the Yakut horses. They're pretty phenomenal, and the environment in which they live is pretty phenomenal. And I'll just stand here for a moment and see if you guys have any questions. As you can see, my equine audience is quite excited with the fact that I have a little bit of hay. I gave some to the horses behind me, and I'll go spread out a little bit here now so these guys leave me alone. Come on. Come on.
I would like to know if the coloring of horses has anything to do with where they live and what you just saw.
I can't hear you very well, James. Can you speak up?
Celia would like to know if you know if there's coloring differences in terms of where the horses are from. And the white horses we just saw, are they white because they were in the Arctic?
Oh, no. It's interesting. Most of the color variations that you see in horses now have been a result of people breeding specifically for a color or specifically for some other aspect. So there are breeds of horses that don't have much color variation. Tennessee Walkers have a great deal of color variation, but the color does not necessarily vary with where a horse lives, but varies with breeding. And I think that you did notice that most of the Yakut horses are fairly white, but there are other northern horses that are not. They are different colors. So that's a really good question, Celia, and it's one that I'm going to look up and see. I've never really asked the question, is color a function of geography? But I do know that, for example, draft horses are from the north. Again, going along Bergman's rule, that's where draft horses evolved, was in northern Europe and northern Asia. And they come in all different kind of colors. So I'm going to look that up, and I'm going to get back with you on that, a little more detail. Good question. Anything else, James?
The Springs would like to know if the horses we saw were wild horses or free range.
Those are, in the video, those are all free-range horses. They belong to somebody, to the herders there in Siberia, and they go out and gather them up. But they don't stable them. I think there was part of the video that showed them gathering them up, and probably, to select out the horses that were going to be used for training or for some other purpose. But they are free-ranging. They don't stay in pastures like they do in the United States. All of the domestic horses are somehow contained. Except, I have to say that in Alaska, I had a very good friend who was a guide in the Brooks Range of Alaska, which is way far north. And during the winter, he would let his horses go. And it always amazed me that they did so well and survived. And then every spring, he would gather up people to help him go find those horses. He basically knew where they were in a general area and certain drainages. And the horses taught themselves how to survive in that area by breaking ice and pawing through the snow. So they're very resourceful. Horses are extremely resourceful, particularly if they're born into, a herd that requires that kind of resourcefulness. I mean, you couldn't take one of our horses and let it loose in the Brooks Range and expect it to survive. Good question. Does anybody else have a question? Well, if there are no further questions, I'm going to salute off for the afternoon, and I'm going to go and enjoy a walk on this lovely sunny afternoon, and I hope all of you are going to enjoy the rest of your afternoon as well. I appreciate us today, and do come back on Thursday. We will have a rebroadcast of Mackenzie's training the Divas this last Sunday, and he had another rainy day, but it didn't seem to bother anybody. The Divas love their working with Mackenzie. So come back, please. Thank you very much for joining us, and with that, I'll sign off. Goodbye.